Hello, Leo. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so very much for being here with me. It is a blessing and a pleasure to be here with you. Please do trust that whenever you have found yourself here, there are likely to be messages within the contents of this video for you. I would encourage you to use your discernment. Take only what resonates with you and leave the rest for someone else. Please do not make anything your story that isn't. Something I find to be quite interesting about your sign, Leo, is that it is one of the few that didn't have its messages initiated by a song. And the songs that did come through for you have no lyrics. And it feels as though this is speaking to a much bigger message. It seems to be saying that the time for talking is over. It seems to have something to do with no longer pretending, with no longer wearing a mask, with no longer hiding behind a facade, but actually just showing up as who you are. Perhaps you're someone who has experienced certain types of traumas, wounding, or programming by which you have felt the need to justify your existence, to over-explain things, to try to get people to see things from your perspective and to see you as valuable or important or to consider you. And it seems as though what you're being asked to do here is to just stop explaining. Just show up as you are and be. Now, that's not a free pass to show up and just treat people any old type of way and to just be inconsiderate or disrespectful or any of those sorts of things. Okay, that's not what I'm saying here. But what I'm saying is to stop explaining yourself, to stop justifying your existence, to just simply be. Those who get it will stick around, they will appreciate it, they will enjoy it, they will marvel at it. Those who don't, won't. So again, it brings me back to the fact that the songs that came through for you had no lyrics. It's no longer explaining. It's no longer talking about it. It's no longer justifying it. It just simply is. And some people are going to feel it deep in their bones and other people aren't. Okay? Another thing I want to share with you before we get into the original messages that I had coming in for you, I would like to share that while I was preparing to sit down here, I saw what I believe to be a hawk flying outside the window and circling several times. And as I was sitting here, I began to question whether or not this was something that I was meant to be sharing with you. And so I asked, okay, I simply asked, if this is something I'm meant to be sharing with Leo, please show yourself to me again. And this hawk actually did show itself to me again. The only difference is that it was a bit further away. And at the same time that it showed itself to me, there was a storm rolling in. And so there was this misty, cloudy, gray sky thing going on. And so though I could see it, there were times that it was more clear than others because it was veiled or cloaked by these gray clouds or by this mist that was rolling in with this storm, which says a lot to me. But before I reveal what this was showing to me, I just want to share with you from the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit guidebook what is said about the hawk. So according to Kim Krans and the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit, the hawk is a watchful, all-seeing messenger of divinity. And it says, the sharp eyes of the hawk watch our every move. This keen-eyed bird has the ability to see every little detail, as well as the bigger picture. When this card appears, fate has its eyes on you and the winds are shifting. It is said that the hawk carries news upon its wings and is sent from divinity itself to deliver it. The message should not be taken lightly. Though it may seem small or insignificant, it will eventually redirect your course. When in balance, sees clearly, intuitive. When out of balance, sees too much, suspicious. To bring into balance, perspective shift. So I share all of that with you so that you can sit with that information yourself and take from it what resonates with you. There may be something triggered there that is not making itself known to me, but I also share it with you to give you this structure, if you will, as to the messages that were coming in with seeing this hawk and how it felt to me and how it was revealing itself to me for you. So you may be or may have been struggling to see the bigger picture, or have been struggling to see a shift taking place, simply because initially the hawk flying, circling near my window was very clear and it was very close up, right? So when you think about that, it's kind of, let's say, more detail oriented, or very, very kind of close to things going on, if you will. And then it was much further away and was being, cloaked or veiled by the clouds that were rolling in. So what that says to me is that you may have been too close to something. Seeing the bigger picture may have been a challenge, right? Or you may have been so close to something, so enmeshed in something, that you're struggling to see shifts taking place. And this happens a lot, actually. For example, when you're going through a particular period of growth or stage of evolution where you're in the thick of it, and it just seems like you're just battling over and over and over again. But once you get on the other side of it, you can actually see how much you've grown and evolved through that process. So I hope that makes sense. You could have had difficulty seeing or receiving messages or intuitive divine instruction. Again, too enmeshed in the storm, too caught up in the chaos of the storm to actually be seeing or receiving those divine messages or that divine instruction. And so another part of this is asking you to trust and be open to receiving those messages that are meant to be redirecting you or aligning you with wherever you're meant to be going, whatever's meant to be unfolding for you next, whatever the course of evolution may be for you at this time. And then on the back end, there's a thread that's a little quieter, let's say, which says, trust that God, the divine, sees all. Okay? And eventually the clouds, the confusion will give way to clear blue skies. The storms you have braved have watered you. They've nourished you. Even if the only thing that you could feel at the time was being, caught up in the storm, it has strengthened you. But even if you're not on the other side of it yet, through this stormy weather, you have this opportunity to allow it to nourish you. It can be the thing that strengthens you, that showers you with wisdom and courage and faith that maybe were hard to acknowledge before. which really is a beautiful segue into the messages that were coming through for you originally. So the first message that I had come in for you, Leo, is the truth shall set you free. And that was followed by a question for you. Is there a truth you've been avoiding or denying? This doesn't have to be negative, but it could be uncomfortable or painful to admit, whatever this truth may be. And I felt very strongly that this could be related to strength, power, courage, sheer will, or luminosity, overshadowed by fear, trauma, wounding, pain, and or programming. Which brings me back to what I was speaking on earlier about how the songs that came through for you have no lyrics and how the time for talking is over. There's a feeling of embodying who and what you truly are. No longer playing small or shrinking yourself down for others or flying under the radar or any of those sorts of things, right? It feels as though what you may have experienced in your life, Leo, has positioned you to believe things about yourself that are just simply not true. Now, this is not to say that maybe you haven't experienced, again, trauma, wounding, programming. That's not to say that maybe you haven't made some mistakes. Maybe they've been really big mistakes. But those things do not define you unless you give those things the power to do that. So perhaps you are or may have struggled to admit or acknowledge your potential for greatness or your innate greatness. Or perhaps you don't feel worthy or safe enough to acknowledge, accept, express, or declare the greatness within you. You may have experienced trauma at the hands of someone or many people who wanted or even perhaps felt as though they needed to keep you feeling and playing small. They may have wanted to keep your light hidden, wanted to extinguish it, control it, or even siphon it. Someone or something may have wanted to strip you of your will, your life force. Now, certainly this could be many different things, depending on you, your experiences, and your journey, okay? But whatever this is for you, it has caged you. It has put you in a position to believe that you are unworthy, undeserving, that you don't matter, you're not important, that you can't, you won't, you shouldn't. A lot of what I'm picking up is this restrictive thoughts, words, even actions. You may have been someone who has self-sabotaged on many occasions simply because you have been brought to believe something about yourself that frankly isn't true, but your trauma wounding programming has made you believe that to be so. The first song that came through for you, Leo, is called Starseed by Volo. And as I shared earlier, it has no lyrics, but you may benefit from sitting with and meditating on the song. You know, what is it stirring within you? What is it trying to bring to the surface? Again, much of what is coming through for you, Leo, has to do with getting beneath the surface. And not just for yourself, but also with what you show to the world, what you share with the world. It's actually quite synchronistic and fascinating because I was just having a conversation with a Leo about how there is so much stereotyping around Leos, and a lot of what you hear about Leos is very surface level. So I just find that to be quite interesting, because I feel as though the whole point of whatever's going on for you right now, Leo, is to get beyond that. Right, is to get beyond the generalization, the stereotyping, whatever other people want to believe or say or project onto you. I feel as though it's time to just stop letting that be the structure by which you move. It's coming through as no longer diluting who you are, right? No more watering yourself down because others can't handle it. I've said this many times before in Leo readings on this channel. So if you've been here for a while, then you've probably heard me say it. But here's the thing. Leo, you are ruled by the sun. Okay? The sun. I know I don't need to tell you that, but just to put this into perspective, there are going to be some people who cannot handle your light, and that is not your problem. The sun doesn't stop shining because people are too hot, or because it's too bright, or because they wish it was nighttime, or whatever. No, if you have a problem with how hot the sun is, then go somewhere else. If you have a problem with how bright the sun is, then put on some sunglasses, because the sun is not going to stop sunning. Okay, it's just not going to happen. This is not me saying you can just treat anyone however you want. But what it is saying is that you should not be lying to yourself or to other people by pretending to be something you're not. I did get repeating fives for you, 55, 555, and I wanted to share with you a bit of information from Numbers, Their Occult Power and Mystic Virtues, a book by W. Wynne Westcott regarding the pentad, or the number 5. And I find this to be fascinating with everything that we've been discussing thus far. Light, according to Westcott, is referred to the number 5. Interesting, being ruled by the sun, don't you think? And justice, from throwing things into the light. Now, let's just sit back for a moment and consider the fact that, again, Leo, you're ruled by the sun. You have this light about you, even if you don't see it yourself. And because you carry that within you, when you start to get around certain individuals or in certain situations and circumstances where people are doing dirty deeds done cheap, or, where they're doing things in the darkness, and here you come with your bright light, shining on it, revealing truth, even if not at the conscious level. It's bound to ruffle some feathers. It feels like this is just part of maybe what you experience. Showing up and just shedding light on things, and all of a sudden you're getting all this hate. You're getting all of this backlash, all of this projection, all of these things. And it feels like some of that could be coming from the fact that you just shine your light on things that people do not want to see or to be seen. That light, those things about you, has the power to trigger others. People don't like that. And instead of turning that in towards themselves, they're going to point the finger at the one who's showing it to them. You're the one making me uncomfortable. You're the one who's showing me the things I don't want to see. You're the one, I was fine until you came along. They may not even be conscious of this. But if you are, then it certainly is going to change how you navigate these situations. Further, again, right? The number 5, according to Westcott, is also named Nemesis, for it arranges in an appropriate manner all things celestial, divine, and natural. Think of it, king of the jungle, bringing order. He also says, the ancients had a maxim, pass not above the beam of balance. That is, be not the cause for injury. For they said, let the members in a series form a balance beam. Hence, it is worse to do than to suffer injury. And the authors sink down to the infernal regions, but the injured rise to the gods. So what this says to me, Leo, is that because you have this nature about you that is very loving, compassionate, protective, loyal, generous, warm, that it's like taking all of the slings and arrows, right? I feel like you could resonate very deeply with just feeling like you're constantly under attack, but knowing on some level that the proper response to that is not to retaliate. Which is interesting because a lot of people refer to Leo as being prideful. And sure, that can be the case, especially with an underdeveloped Leo. You could certainly see the ego running rampant and being prideful in a very destructive way. But the way that it's coming through here is almost this pride in your morals and values and holding fast to those. I have a certain I have a certain level of integrity. I have a certain level of pride when it comes to how I want to move in the world. And as someone who is so passionate and loving and loyal and generous and warm-hearted, I feel like it goes against part of you to be vindictive, to retaliate, and so what you may have experienced is other people trying to cause you injury, right? Again, trying to keep you playing small, trying to keep you caged, wanting to smother your light, wanting to siphon your light, wanting to just tuck you away somewhere. Speaking of the number 5, the 5th house is ruled by Leo and the sun. And so let's talk about that for a moment from an esoteric perspective. From dkfoundation.co.uk, quote, House 5 is associated with self-expression, individuality, and creativity, but it is the response and recognition of others which supplies the creative drive. And it goes on to say, quote, the house of creativity provides the foundations of the human soul, because when the sacral center is under control, there is creative energy available for other activities other than procreation and survival. Then the causal body can form. As the soul develops, the house of Leo retains its direct connection to it. Okay, so just to kind of sit with this for a moment, the fifth house being associated with that individuality and creativity, but as a response and recognition of others, which supplies the creative drive. If you are constantly feeling like you're being caged, if you're constantly feeling like you're under attack, the way that those energies are going to show up is likely to be in an unhealthy manner, because it's that recognition, the response of others, that support, which supplies that drive. The causal body is the essence of the experiences of life that remain, which are taken into future incarnations, even if not remembered. I will link a video below for you to check out if you want to learn more about the causal body, but I felt like these were really important points to make, considering everything that's come through for you and the way that it's come through, because to be quite frank, Leo, I feel like you've been in a fight for your life. Certainly that can show up in a lot of different ways. The way that that feels for you is, going to be different than someone else. But it does feel like a fight for your life. It does feel like trying to keep your head above water while different experiences or people, different belief systems and trauma wounding programming are trying to kind of push you underwater. From mermaid-uk.net, the natural rulership of the sun and Leo over this house lead to the blending of love and will. So do you see how there's this full circle moment where there's all this love that you have, but without that will, without that life force and being able to use it properly, how damaging, destructive that could be. The image I'm getting in my mind is essentially of you giving your heart and whomever or whatever you've given your heart to, just taking it and throwing it to the side as though it has no value. Being this energy that feels things so deeply and is so compassionate and so filled with love, but having experiences where you feel as though that is not appreciated or it's taken advantage of or it doesn't matter, but that feels like all that you are. I mean, it's like solitary confinement, right? It's like, trying to share your love, share your heart, be compassionate, but having had experiences where your will, your life force has been stripped from you, where you feel as though somewhere along the way something, has convinced you that what you have to offer isn't valuable, it isn't meaningful, it's not important. And so there's this almost this separation or disassociation from who you truly are and what you truly have to offer and how important that truly is, how meaningful that is, how valuable that is. And, that may have led you astray. It may have led you to this very skewed perspective of yourself, and again, has caused you perhaps to play very small, to, feel like you're in a cage. But another song came through for you, Leo, called Axis Mundi, also by Volo. And the Axis Mundi is the connection between heaven and earth, which I feel is safe to say that each human being, in a sense, is an Axis Mundi, okay? That connection between heaven and earth. We are made in the image of God. And as Rudolf Steiner said in GA 113, you know, Christ is essentially divinity within the soul. It's living within the soul, you know, thereby being this connection between heaven and earth. And I feel like what you're being called to do, Leo, is to own the light that inherently shines from within you and to share it, to share you with the world. To realize that as a human being made in the image of God, as a human being carrying Christ within you, you are, in a sense, a connection between heaven and earth because you live in a physical body. Not to mention the fact, again, that you're ruled by the sun. The sun being the force that gives life to all things, that gives light and warmth to all things. This is something that I feel like you're meant to be unpacking, that you're meant to be coming to realize within yourself. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form saying that this is something that's going to be easy. Wow, look how bright the sun is getting right now, by the way. I love that for you, Leo. Oh my gosh. But, you know, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that this is something that's going to be easy, that it's something that's going to happen overnight, that it's something that is not going to require effort. It's not easy. It's not. It's really freaking hard. You've got to earn it. Okay? But I feel like this is the task that you are being asked to take on, that you are being asked to have the courage, the strength, the faith to pursue, to turn that ferocity, to turn that passion, that fire to. I cannot wait to see what other messages would like to come through for you. So let's get into the cards. I also just want to share with you that a ladybug landed on my window just now. So ladybugs could be significant for you, but it's very interesting because I haven't actually seen very many of them. And to just have one land on my window here just now is pretty interesting. Again, take what resonates with you, leave the rest for someone else. So let's get into these cards and see what messages want to come through for you. Hey there, Leo. Just a heads up, you may notice a slight variation from the first half and second half of your video. The reason for that is during the editing process, I realized that there was a section of your messages missing. And so essentially I've just sat down to start over. I just wanted to give you that heads up in case you're looking at the video wondering why things look a little bit different. That is why. There's no other funny business going on. Unfortunately, these things happen. So I'm very excited to dive in and share these messages with you and can't wait to see what comes through. So let's jump in. Father, Mother, Life, Christ, Universe, Spirits, Guides, Angels, our cosmic team, our ancestors, our higher selves, what messages are appropriate for Leo at this time, please? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Interesting. Okay. The first card out here for you is Air. Expansive, intellectual, inquisitive. I think this is really interesting considering the fact that you did have the hawk energy showing up, which is also an air energy. The other interesting thing about this is that your previous messages had talked about essentially taking up space and being okay with taking up space, being comfortable with taking up space, and being intentional about essentially doing that. It's interesting to note, of course, that, this air energy is associated often with the mind and thinking and communication, these sorts of things. And as we sit here and talk about, taking up space and this expansive energy, I feel for you, Leo, this is also going to require a mindset shift. Creating new neural pathways, perhaps, in order to feel safe, secure, comfortable taking up space. Because there is this apprehensive, hesitant energy. And maybe this comes from trauma, wounding, or programming that you've experienced, again, that has convinced you to play small, that has, or perhaps you felt as though you needed to do that in order to survive, right? It just feels like there could be this little bit of an obstacle, a little bit of a challenge to overcome with regard to the mindset. I'm hearing the words imposter syndrome. So with this expansive air energy, it feels as though part of this process for you, or part of what you may be experiencing, is actually overcoming your own mindset. Okay? I'm also getting you're smarter than you think you are. You're more intelligent than you think you are. That could be from some kind of programming or something, right? Someone telling you you're not very bright, or maybe you grew up struggling in class or something like that. But there's more to you than meets the eye. You also have Aries here. So 2 A words right out of the gate. The letter A could be significant for you. Perhaps those are your initials, right? AA. Or perhaps one of your initials is an A, right? First or last. Or that could just be significant for you. I'm also getting like some kind of Alcoholics Anonymous, or something similar to that. That could be significant for you as well. But it does say trailblazing, innovative, and fearless. This is really going to ask you to push past your limits. Again, it's that expansive energy. It's getting outside of your comfort zone. It is going beyond what you think you're capable of. This may not only be something about taking up space and letting your light shine and being your most authentic self, but it could also have something to do with whatever it is maybe you're healing or working through. And I'm not saying this to invalidate your experience, but because the path of healing and purification, evolution, or what the New Age calls ascension, can be so challenging, there are cases where people will just give up. They'll just stop. Okay? And I'm actually seeing, I believe this was floating around socials for a while, maybe it still is, but it's like a cartoon picture where you have one person who is, chipping away, and there's some kind of treasure or something just on the other side of the wall, and you can see where they walked away and they were so close. I'm getting a similar kind of vibe here. I feel like it's a message of pushing past your limits, continuing to move forward even when you feel like you can't, even when you want to give up, right? I feel like this is where that trailblazing fearlessness comes in. And here's the thing. What's interesting about this trailblazing energy coming in is, oftentimes when we think of a trailblazer, we think of someone who's the first one to ever do it, right? They're the first one to kind of veer off the beaten path, if you will. So in this case, it's interesting because you may actually be this trailblazer in your lineage. But there's another part of this that is kind of saying, do something you've never done before. Be willing to do things you've never done before. It's a very interesting picture that I'm getting here, because what it's essentially saying is, maybe this is like the first time in your life that you've veered away from the path that you have always walked. So it's very interesting how it's coming through. Again, you could most certainly be the black sheep, if you will, the curse breaker, whatever you want to call it, in your lineage. But it does feel as though you're being asked to move in a way that you have not before. I'm hearing, I don't know, maybe this is significant for you, but I'm hearing, take the bull by the horns. Ascendant, appearance, first impression, mask. Things are not always what they seem. Things are not always what they seem. First impressions, first appearances aren't always everything. The way that this card is coming through is acknowledging a couple of things. First of all, you are not at all what you seem, I feel like. I feel like there are a lot of people who probably have misjudged you, okay, based on first impressions or maybe your appearance, things like this, right? As I was saying earlier, there's more to you than meets the eye. But I feel like this also applies to your journey as you continue to evolve, as you continue to progress. This does seem to relate back to the picture I was describing where, the cartoon figure quits chipping away just before he's reached the treasure. Because things are not always what they seem. Especially when it comes to this process. Okay? I find it fascinating as well that this card is followed by Sagittarius, adventurous, free, philosophical. Sagittarius being here is quite fascinating. Firstly, because the glyph looks like an arrow. So it's like, keep going this way, right? But also the fact that we have the words adventurous and free here. And coming back again to that cartoon picture I mentioned, there's a thread of things are not always what they seem, and in order to hold your freedom, in order to set yourself free, essentially, in order to break through that wall, in order to experience freedom, expansion, right? There has to be this understanding that things aren't always what they seem. And if you see it as this adventure and just keep going, you may find that what initially looked like a dead end is actually not that at all. It just takes looking at things from a different perspective or through a different lens. And in some cases, part of this could very well be expanding your lexicon. Okay, if you learn more, you come to understand more, you have this deeper knowledge base, then that could be the thing that transforms what looked like that dead end into a doorway, if you will. Or that could be the thing that shifts you enough to recognize that what looked like a dead end actually wasn't at all. It's just you don't know what you don't know, right? And again, we have that A energy showing up here with the ascendant. So 3 A's in a row. I mean, come on. That could be significant for you. Again, with the initials, or AAA could be significant for you in some way. I just find it really interesting that we have that alpha energy showing up. And maybe this is a not so subtle nudge for you to step into that alpha energy. More messages for Leo, please. Okay. Thank you. Okay. One more, please. We have here the number 33, chaos and conflict. Notice how the zebra looks as though he may have been wearing a giraffe costume, trying to be something he is not. Interesting, considering the fact that the word mask is on that ascendant card. It's like shedding what you thought you were or what you wanted to be. The number 4, higher power, in the reverse or protection position. You may have actually been rather disconnected, as we were talking about earlier, from your higher self, from that higher power. You may have perhaps for some time or maybe for, the entirety of your life thus far, not really believed in a higher power, or believe that you have a soul, or believe that you have been worthy or deserving of that support or that connection. You may have really struggled to tap into that, or to believe it, to have faith in it. Also here the number 49 with observer, also appearing in the reverse or protection position. The number 13 also reduces to 4. That's pretty interesting. I do find it quite fascinating as well that we were just talking about shifting perspective, seeing things differently. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to play the observer. Sometimes we have to pull back or essentially, look at things from the top of the mountain instead of halfway up, if you will. You can seem as though you're not making any progress. But once you get to, let's say, the summit, if you will, and you look back, you realize how far you've come. Let's take a peek in the guidebook and see what the protection messages are for both of these cards. First, the number 4, higher power. The essential meanings: conscious contact with a higher power, the presence of the divine, seeing source energy in all things, committing to a partnership with spirit. Now is the time to examine what you are giving energy and attention to in the back of your mind. If you're obsessing about being right, about old resentments or failed expectations, about money, or about any other people, places, or things, these will be the source from which you create. But you want spirit to be your source. Take heart, for your higher power will never desert you and is always waiting for you to remember the sacred partnership you share. Turn away from other sources of power that don't serve your highest good. There is no greater source than spirit. You can always surrender your troubles and trust that they will be taken care of. You are in good hands. It's reminding me of a song called Hands in It. I can't recall exactly who the artists are right now. I will link it below for you. The song is essentially talking about, surrendering to God. And at the end of the song, the gentleman, it sounds like he may be preaching or something. And he's saying that he no longer turns towards all these other things like money or work or alcohol or even a spouse to solve problems, to, fix things. He turns to the source and sees, for example, a spouse as a resource, but recognizing the only one that can actually heal, is God, is source. And I feel like that song could be very relevant for what you may be called to do as you move forward. It may hold some keys for you. It may flip some switches, if you will. Give it a listen if you feel called to. Let's check out the observer and its protection message. The essential meanings are perspective, objectivity, neutral observation from a distance, and the protection message says, ever think sometimes your life options are suction cupped to your face and you can't see beyond yourself? There's a big world out there, a multitude of potential realities that you're unable to perceive at present. So you're a little stuck. It's time to get advice from someone you trust, someone who has a better perspective on your circumstances. Other points of view are needed now before you move forward. Take heart. A beautiful vista is waiting for you to drink it in. You just need a little help widening your scope beyond your small self. I think that's really fascinating considering, that essentially we were just only minutes ago, just talking about how things aren't always what they seem. And sometimes what you think is a dead end actually isn't. So if you needed a sign of your sign, there it is. It's very interesting that this card falls beneath that expansive air, right? Trying to operate from that smaller self, trying to operate from just the physical, could have been the cause of some of this chaos and conflict. And if that's something that you've been experiencing, or perhaps something that you come across, it may be time to check in with yourself and to ask yourself, am I trying to micromanage the universe? Am I trying to take on the responsibility of that which is much greater than myself? Am I looking at this too closely? Am I so wrapped up in what's going on that I can't see past my hand in front of my face? You know, it may be time to check in with yourself and to ask yourself those questions. Because again, things are not always what they seem. And sometimes it takes expanding your awareness, expanding your level of consciousness, changing perspectives, freeing yourself of things in order to see it differently. Thank you. And one more, please. Interesting that you have two queens popping out here for this last section of the tarot, and especially with what those two queens are. So first here you have the Wheel in the reverse, and again it's that trying to micromanage the universe, trying to control the wheel, trying to control fate, clinging to things that aren't working, that aren't for you, that have held you back long enough. Eight of Wands in the reverse as well. Yeah, trying to micromanage the universe and just creating all of this anxiety and panic within yourself because things aren't moving. It's not moving the way you want it to. Things are not progressing. Three of Pentacles. This is my Teamwork Makes the Dream Work card. And the way that I see this card, especially with this higher power card above it, the gentleman there, you know, looking down on the work that's being done often reminds me of Source. And then there's, you know, the angel here that's standing, that's like trying to help guide things and trying to help direct and, you know, make things a bit easier. And then they're sitting on the floor, you know, is you actually having to follow that instruction and to be guided and to, you know, allow those forces that can see more than you to guide you. Again, it's teamwork makes the dream work. It's putting in this group effort to bring this tapestry together, this tapestry being your life, your destiny. So what I feel like the Three of Pentacles is saying is that if you stop trying to micromanage the universe and stop trying to control things and cling to things and make it your way, and instead collaborate with Source, reconnect with that higher power, with your higher self, you won't experience the same chaos and conflict. That's not to say that there won't be any chaos or conflict. That's not to say that you won't experience any kind of obstacle or challenge, but it's just that you're less likely to feel like you're hitting your head up against a wall when you're in this state of non-resistance, when you're in this state of collaboration with Source, with your higher self. Seven of Swords. Yes, doing things differently. Doing things differently, changing tactics, changing strategies. This is also an interesting energy to be showing up, considering that we had that Ascendant card with Appearance, First Impression, and Mask, and that Observer card. Okay, because the Seven of Swords can be this energy of being a bit sneaky, okay? Kind of doing things in the dark, maybe not being completely forthright, maybe not telling the truth. Interesting, Queen of Swords in the reverse. Okay, so there's a part of this that almost feels like being sneaky with yourself, or being a bit not being completely transparent with yourself, being a bit dishonest with self, and telling yourself a story, perhaps about a situation or the way you're moving, the decisions you're making, the tactics, the strategy. And perhaps once your level of awareness or consciousness shifts, you'll see that from a very different perspective. The Queen of Wands here is a very bold, fiery, confident, powerful energy, very independent, very feisty even. The thing about the Queen of Wands is she's willing to do things even if others look at her like she's crazy. She has this black cat in front of her, and the thing about that black cat sitting there is she doesn't care that other people may see it as superstitious. It doesn't bother her. She's going to do what she wants because it's what she likes, it's what she feels, right? She's the keeper of her own flame, as it were. So you may have been putting your flame in someone else's hands, you know, be it the world, whatever trauma, programming, wounding, whatever it may be. Maybe someone or your experiences or something has convinced you that there is no collaborative relationship between you and Source or God, that again, you're just this small, insignificant little thing. And maybe the strategy you've been working from has something to do with that. I feel like part of why the Queen of Wands has shown up is because it almost feels as though there's this portrayal of confidence or of bravery, of courage, but I don't feel like it's there yet. I feel like maybe this is something that you've been telling yourself, you know, oh, this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to move this way, and I'm going to take this action, I'm going to implement these things, I'm going to show up more authentically. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be brave. I'm, all of these things. Maybe you're saying all of these things, but aren't actually following through with it, or haven't actually embodied it. As mentioned earlier, the time for talking is over. It feels like it's about taking action. It's not just about thinking about it. It's not just about pondering on it and kind of playing games with yourself, but just it's about actually being bold and being courageous and embodying your fire. There's something here, Leo, about kind of like envisioning it in your mind, or having these conversations with yourself or maybe others where you are like trying to convince yourself that this is what you're going to do, but maybe haven't actually followed through. And I feel like that's why the Queen of Swords and the Queen of Wands have shown up together in the manner that they have. Right? Don't just talk about it, be about it. Yeah, it's like it's taking a completely different approach than maybe what you have previously. Bottom of the deck is the Five of Cups. Grieving, disillusionment, self-pity. And it's interesting because my eye's actually burning and watering. I feel as though, Leo, once your perspective, your level of awareness, your consciousness shifts, and you start to actually see things for what they are, including yourself, I feel like there may be some things that are actually painful to bear witness to, which, it brings me back to the truth shall set you free, but first it's going to hurt a lot. And as a reminder, it's not the truth that actually hurts. It's the fact that we've been lying, or that we've believed a lie, we've betrayed ourselves. That's the part that hurts the most. Right? And so it's interesting because here I get this burning, watery eye, and now that I've been talking about this, it's fine. So I feel as though, again, as your perspective, your level of consciousness, your level of awareness shifts, you may have things revealed to you that are painful at first. But if you take the truth for what it is and don't try to make it something it's not, right? The more that we lie to ourselves, the more we betray ourselves, the more we try to put a pretty bow on what isn't so pretty, whether that be about ourselves or others or the world, the harder it is when the truth actually comes to light, the more painful it is. So once we start to see things for what they are, and we acknowledge them for what they are, we begin to grieve, we begin the healing process. The sooner that the relief comes, the sooner we can move forward. It's when we try to make something what it isn't that we create more chaos, conflict, and pain for ourselves. Right? So the Five of Cups showing up, I feel like, is really about letting things be what they are. though I know that is much easier said than done. And it is not something that is likely to happen overnight. Okay. Thank you. All right, we have here for you the law of compensation. Give that which you seek. The way that this is showing up, Leo, is essentially in order to receive, you must first give. So, for example, if you want to be accepted for who you are, not only do you have to figure out what that is and share that, but also you have to accept others as they are. And you can apply that in whatever way most resonates with you in your life. So if you want people to be truthful and authentic, then you have to give that. If you want compassion, if you want empathy, if, you know, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever it is that you are seeking, give that. You have here as well the law of non-attachment. Let go, release, and allow miracles. That's the key to your freedom. Is not trying to control fate, control the wheel, not trying to micromanage the universe, not trying to produce particular outcomes. It's when we are in this state of resistance that we meet exactly that. But when we learn to surrender, when we learn to let go, release, that's when things start flowing. That's when that higher power source can come in and can actually start moving things. When we're in this state of attachment, when we're clinging, when we're, micromanaging, what we're essentially doing is closing ourselves off. We're putting this big wall around ourselves. We're closing our fists. Source is trying to essentially hand us things, and we're like, no, I'm going to cling to this instead. And you can't receive if you're clenching onto something else, right? Okay. Final messages for Leo, please. Wow, okay. The wheel card being moved in the way that it has tells me that what you experience moving forward is going to depend on you. How things unfold is going to depend on you. The ball is in your court. Sword of light, divine protection, cords cut, breakthrough energy. This is essentially the card of Archangel Michael coming in with a sword and slicing through all of these things that don't serve you. I feel like this card is coming up to essentially say you may be experiencing almost this kind of review of things in your life. And this could be trauma, wounding, programming that you've experienced. It can also be jobs, living situations, relationships, you name it. I feel like anything and everything could be on the chopping block, if you will. But it's essentially saying that it's time to take inventory and decide what stays and what goes. I'm kind of seeing it as very abrupt in some cases. Some of these things could be just, we're done, snip, snip. You know, like I'm not taking this with me moving forward. This could also be thought patterns, mindsets, ways of being. And I feel like that's what will lead to the breakthrough, is things coming up for review, as it were. Is it staying? Is it going? And just, I say and just like it's easy. There's an element of having this level of courage and faith to say, this thing isn't working for me. This way of being isn't working. This way of living isn't working. This mindset isn't working. And I'm going to, right, being very deliberate, very intentional, I'm going to do what it takes to shift it. Because this is the only way I'm going to be able to set myself free. This is the only way I'm going to be able to experience life differently. This is the only thing that's going to allow me to be who I actually am, or to figure out who that is. Forgive me, but it's cutting the dead weight. Because all of these things that you may be carrying are clouding, masking who you truly are. And so finding the courage and the strength, the faith to just cut it, to cut the cords, could really be this turning point in your experience. Inner earth, base chakra, strength and security, laying foundations. Creating this space within yourself for you to be yourself, right? Clearing away all of this debris, all of the rubbish, and laying new foundations. Things that are going to allow you to feel safe and strong and secure in who you are. The base chakra or root chakra is often associated with trauma we've been carrying for far too long. So you may be going through this like review and are being asked, have you been carrying this for too long? Is it time to let this go? Is this preventing you from feeling strong and safe and secure in who you are? Is this preventing you from moving forward, from growing, from expanding, from evolving? Is this holding you back? Is this weighing you down? And finally, Arcturian light codes, evolutionary downloads, recalling power, future thinking. It's time to let go of that which is preventing you from moving forward or is slowing you down. I know it is so much easier said than done. But it does feel like a lot of what has been coming in for you has already been this initiating force. It's already been setting things in motion for you to take back your power, for you to step into who you truly are. That's not to say it's going to happen overnight. That's not to say that it's going to be easy. That is not to say that it's going to be fun, okay? But it does feel as though things have already been set in motion. You've already had seeds planted. And so now I feel like what's being asked of you is to essentially put in the work, to nurture them, nourish them. It is asking you to shift your perspective, to change tactics, to change strategies, to see things differently, to move differently than you have before. And it's asking you to no longer fear who you truly are, but to find strength in it. Which is why I feel like this sort of light energy is coming forward to encourage you to release the things, the trauma, wounding, programming, fill in the blank, mindsets, people, belief systems, you name it, that have convinced you that it's not safe to be you, that have convinced you that you're not strong enough to carry all of who you are, that you have to play small, to take back your power from these things that have caused you so much pain, from these things that have caused you suffering, that have put you in this position where you want to try to control every aspect in order to save yourself from being hurt. There's also something, I feel like I'm holding my breath, okay? I just feel like I need to say that because here's the thing, I feel like this is terrifying for you. I feel like you being your most authentic self is terrifying. And I feel like, you know, whatever you've experienced, trauma, wounding, programming, etc., has led to that space. And so what is being asked of you is truly no minor quest. It is not something that is just small potatoes. So I can understand the feeling of like sitting on pins and needles, of, you know, holding your breath, waiting for the next knife in your back. I can understand the apprehension, the hesitation, the fear. So please know that I am not sitting here saying these things to you as though you can just wave a wand and everything is just going to be hunky-dory, or that you're going to leave this video and everything is just going to appear before you as if by magic, you know, like Amazon, you know, that it's just gonna poof, there it is. I am sitting here knowing full well that what you are being asked to do takes tremendous, extraordinary courage, strength, faith, patience, compassion, grace, empathy, and a whole hell of a lot of work. That being said, you are so much more powerful than what you probably believe. You're so much stronger than what you probably believe. And though it may appear to be so, you are never alone. Thank you so very much for sharing your time with me. It's been an honor and privilege to share these messages with you. I pray that something here has resonated for you or been valuable for you in some way. Please take care of your bright, shining, beautiful, expansive, evolving, courageous, strong, powerful soul. Peace be with you and within you, and I hope to see you in another chat. Bye.